Welcome, everyone. I'm Chari Elam with the Bee Supply Monthly. I hope you look at magazine with the Bee Supply. I have a wonderful guest with me today, Mr. Cory Stevens. How are you, Cory?
I'm doing great here in Southeast Missouri. How you doing in Texas?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good,
Wonderful.
good. The sun's shining as you can see, so hey, it's a good day.
Oh, and it is here too. Oh my gosh, it is here too. So we're warm weather. How about you? Oh, I don't want to get past
Well,
talking about you, but it's warm here. Is it warm there?
kind of. It like was Arctic temperatures a while back, and then it went to like 60s and sunny, and the bees were getting amped up, and now we're back to getting good hard frost again. It's cool a little bit, but that's Missouri, you know. It's until spring really breaks, it's a gamble at this point.
Well, I think we were 37 this morning, and now I think it's going to get to. I know that's a lot. I know we're building fires and wondering if we're going to live through that kind of cold around here. But we're weenies. So before we get, I want to talk about you because that's why people are focused on this video, because you're a pretty interesting guy, dude. Tell us about Cory Stevens and your wonderful company, what you do.
Well, I own Stevens Bee Company. I know a lot of people email me and say, "Hey, Steven," but my name is Cory Stevens. I own Stevens Bee Company. Um, let's see. I think we're around 16th year of beekeeping, something like that. I'm an entomologist by training, have an ag business degree too. So, that's the academic side of things, but really, I feel like I'm a beekeeper before I'm an entomologist, even. Like, I feel like whenever I studied that, it was later on, it was like 2020, whenever I got that degree. And so I was really entrenched in what I was doing with bees, and that just kind of gave me an even wider view on it. It just worked out perfectly. Um, our main thing's breeding for host resistance that most of our bees in the US and worldwide don't have because, you got to select for it. There's a lot of hard work involved and it's pretty thankless at times. But we've been really focused on VSH. We've used whatever people called VSH. Before I was a VSH breeder, I was a VSH forwarder. Like I would, anything they said was VSH, I would buy it and run it and see what happened with it and just watch it in the field. Um, Queen rearing's a big thing of mine. I think that took me from expensive hobby to actually making a little bit of money. So Jamie was like, okay, maybe he's not completely nuts. Uh, I learned instrumental insemination. We talked about that just a second ago from Sue Kobe in 2014. I'm about to be a full-time beekeeper. So far, I've been a senior transportation rep for Nestle Purina for almost 15 years. And now I'm taking the jump and going full-time bees, bee research, bee breeding. Here we go.
I love it. And you're going to love it
I hope
because
so.
now you're going to get to do, what your brain's thinking about most of the time anyway. Well, you
Yeah.
mentioned Sue Kobe, and we did briefly talk about that before I hit record, but she's world renowned in queen insemination. And I'm sure you put the importance of that knowledge you captured from her to where you are now.
Absolutely. Yeah, she had decades of experience when I learned from her.
Mhm.
And, I don't like to cut corners or play games. I like to take the hard path. It's harder for a reason, but long term, it's always better. It's expensive, but I didn't care. I was obsessed over it, and that's what I wanted to do. And I knew whenever I got locked in on instrumental insemination, I felt like Sue was like the foremost expert. And so I'm like, that's who I want to learn from. And luckily, I got in on her advanced class. Usually, she doesn't let people who have never touched it before in an advanced class. You have to kind of go through a crash course first. And she
Right.
had a slot open. And I guess she thought I seemed like maybe I could grasp it. And so, yeah, the rest is history. And I learned so much. And what she sent home with me, too, not just the practical experience, but she has loads of scientific data from rock stars like Wojcicki and
Mhm.
Poland and all this data to back up why she does what she does.
Yeah.
And so I love that. It's not just because, we thought it was a great idea or grandma
Right.
did it that way, but this is because this is what's the best. So, yeah.
Um, and it is, and having that behind you, I think that really makes it legit. So those that don't, so that are just watching this because they just love watching YouTube videos, explain what queen insemination is for
Yep.
them.
So, in nature, which nature is hard to substitute nature, but whenever you open mate queens, a lot of people know that the queen will mate with upwards of 15 or 20 drones. Some studies said it could be a lot more than that. So, it's great for diversity and healthy, robust colonies, but as far as trait selection, it's a nightmare. I mean, you can't put a bull in a pen with a cow and know what's coming out the other end. It's like if we're breeding prize black lab retrievers for pheasant hunting, and we got this prize field trial female, and we just kick her out the back door and let her run the neighborhood and hope for the best. You know what I mean? So if you're after something specific, you have to use instrumental. I wouldn't say you have to. It's advantageous to use instrumental insemination. You can get places if you're actually selecting for something and keeping that pressure on it. You can go places with open mating. You don't have to have instrumental insemination, but it's like I heard. I forget who it was exactly. It was one of the rock star bee scientists, maybe Walter Rothenbuehler, said basically like with instrumental insemination, you can select twice as fast
Oh,
as compared to open mating because you have that 50% that's up for grabs. You've got control of it. Now, whenever you get control, it depends on the breeder. You can make your bees better. You can make your bees worse.
oh,
You have control, like if you,
I hadn't
you can,
thought of that.
oh yeah, you can, it just depends on the breeder. I mean, it sounds sexy to instrumental insemination, like dang, that's some pretty high tech stuff. But yeah, in the wrong hands, you can make things worse, actually, even if they're a skilled inseminator. So
Hmm.
anyway, I'm starting a rabbit hole there, Sherry.
Wow, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that, you know.
Yeah,
You really do have to be focused and be reading your notes.
totally. Yep. A lot of documentation work involved. And really, a lot of people, their documentation's tight, their insemination techniques are tight, but they'll use breeding models, I think, that are based off of mammals or something else that aren't honeybees, and it doesn't work as well, or it's really cumbersome to keep it going. Like inbreeding, we all know bees
Mhm.
hate inbreeding. Well, a lot of mammal breeding models are like inbred, hybrid models, like the day dant, midnight, and starline bees. They did exceptionally well, but oh my gosh, what a cumbersome program to maintain. I
Can't
mean,
imagine.
hats off to them for pulling it off because it was world renowned. And I think there's other ways that we can get better performance out of our bees.
Totally true. Gosh, I've got so many questions.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't even know where to start. So let's bring it back home to you. So, does your wife Jamie work with you?
Yep, she does. She has a day job too, but
Mhm.
she takes off a lot. She's got a pretty flexible job, so she takes off a lot to help me out. The kids, the kids have been with me the entire time. They went from, I told a story the other day on Michigan State beekeepers that we would take them with us because we needed to go check hives, and Jamie would keep up with them and like turn the air conditioner on and try to entertain them, in the truck. And one time they found an arrow in my truck. I archery hunt, and they made Swiss cheese out of the headliner of my truck. And
Yeah.
that wasn't all. That wasn't the only gift they gave me while I was keeping bees. They found my favorite LED flashlight, and I had like a two-part epoxy and a syringe, and they glued my power button on my LED flashlight. That was whenever they were smaller.
That'll learn you, darn you.
Oh yeah, for sure. But now, like they've handled thousands and thousands of queens. We sell mainly virgin, so they went from a hindrance to quite a help. But
That's
they're
awesome.
yep,
How many kids? How many kids?
got two. One's 18, so she'll probably be moving out here before too long. And then I've got a 17-year-old right behind her. Yeah, we had them about 14 months apart. So
Wow.
Big
Well, they got it done, got it over with.
yeah,
I
exactly.
totally, I'm on Jamie's side. I did that kind of too.
Rip the Band-Aid off, get it over with.
Get it done. That's super cool that they stayed with you on it. The, we have grandkids that had interest, and I've even got pictures to prove it, but now all these years later, you know, girls got more important or
Yeah,
boys got more important.
yep, I
And
understand. Right.
bees, what bees? So winner for you, you did good with that. Well, that's cool that it's in the family. Do you anticipate they'll, their education level will go that route, or are they just there to
No,
help you?
I think Jade's going to do tech school. She's looking at cybersecurity, which is a big booming market, and she wants to be able to work remotely. So hopefully she lives around close to where I can have grandkids to hang out with, you know, whenever that comes around. And I don't know. I didn't like they kind of got pushed into it at first, but I didn't want to just completely burn them out to where they never want to see a bee again.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know, you got to have a job and work so you can work for Stevens Bee Company, or if you want to go get a job, go get a job. So they went and got a job, which is healthy because after they work for somebody else and they realize, oh, you know, that wasn't so bad working for the old man.
I bet. I bet it's better than swinging burgers, you know?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. I'd rather be outdoors any day. And two, like Jade, I have all this wax that I'm not good at doing anything with. And so she started a little sister company, kind of, or her own little deal. I'm like, do your own thing, you know, that way you're not worried about what I'm doing, or if we get into it, you just go do whatever you want.
Wow.
And so she's making lip balms and stuff like that with the wax. So we'll see.
And you don't charge her for the wax, right, Dad?
No, I told her, I go, if you grow into where you're going to do this on a larger scale, like you can pay me a wholesale rate for my wax, you know.
Bargain.
I'll give you a good deal and it'll be mutually beneficial.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what the season that's coming up really fast.
Real quick.
Made us full circle here. We're going to go back to queens and back to bees.
Yep.
The season's coming really quick. I look at the calendar, tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and I'll put this live right away, but this will be going in the next issue, which is the March issue. But you know, the bees they're looking out their little doors and they're going, you know what? I see buds on trees.
Exactly.
That the world is about to get crazy.
About to go. We had some maple pollen coming in a couple days ago, and now we're getting really hard frost still. We did this morning. So, you know, it's kind of, they'll forage whenever they can, but yeah, it's about to go. The nutrition's starting to come in, and when the nutrition comes in, the daylight hours lengthen, it's on.
It's on. And I've watched several videos where you've talked to people because I really try to learn who I'm talking to, and I knew already, but I wanted to see what you talk about and what's important to you. And one thing that you really kind of went down a road that I'd love to touch on is the nutritional value of that season coming in and that roller coaster ride. We have called it, we've had all kinds of names for it. It's, you know, bipolar is one.
Yeah.
And how that affects everything. Why don't you go down that road for a minute?
Yep. Last year was just a fine example of how this works. So basically, you're talking about nutrition coming in. So this is pollen and nectar, hopefully both at the same time. Sometimes they're not totally congruent, but basically here, typically our spring bloom will follow a bell curve. So it'll come in, you've got maple and stuff popping, then all of a sudden it just launches. And then it'll start to wane. And whenever that wanes, you know, if you look at how many queens I can produce, it's like a mirror image of where that nectar and pollen goes. Like if they don't have nectar and pollen coming in, they're not interested. It's like that's really a big piece of the pie of making them want to swarm and making them want to raise brood and making them want to raise queens. So, and it's hard to mimic. Like you can give them substitutes and stuff to kind of fill in some gaps and valleys. But I think whenever Mother Nature turns it off, you're paddling upstream. Even if you're giving it your all, it's just almost you can't match it exactly. So last year, instead of a bell curve our queen production was like hitting a series of speed bumps at 55 miles. It was terrible. I mean, over, in my spare time, I say my spare time, my side business, we shipped over 2,000 virgin queens last year. So, I mean, but it took us probably 4 to 6 weeks longer than what it normally does to produce that,
Wow.
just because of the nectar flow. We never got that surge of just mass production over several weeks. It just kept, it was all over the place. So,
Was it rain or was it
it was actually pretty dry,
temperature?
but Mother Nature is quite interesting, as you're well aware.
Real
And
fickle.
it was because it was so dry. It was dry the year prior, and we had, like where I was at, my home yard, record production. So it's like it wasn't because it was dry. There's more factors involved here. Like what it was exactly, I don't know. But like one example, I was bringing colonies back to my home yard for UBO testing because we did a UBO trial with.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, that went. I couldn't have. It couldn't have gone any better. But I had some colonies in an out yard that I emptied out that were ready to swarm, and I brought them back to my home yard. Shut it down. They tore down whatever cells they had. They're like, "Whoa, we're starving now. Show's over." So I made it worse by bringing a bunch of colonies to the worst yard I had, but it was the most convenient yard too. So sometimes as beekeepers, we make things worse than what they would have been.
No, really?
Yeah, but there's a silver lining because I did make it more convenient. Whenever Kara tested, she was 5 months pregnant, I think, and it was in the 90s, so it was hot out. I had a tent up for her and had all our colonies in one spot, so we're not running all over the Stoddard County. So yeah, you take the good with the bad. Overall, it was a crazy, insane year, but it was so good as far as the data we collected and running around and talking at the Bee Expo and all that stuff. So it was
That was
good.
so fun. Yeah, that one
Good.
too. Do you think that some of what we experience in early spring isn't just what we're experiencing right here?
Hmm.
That it's really fall and winter combined, and then it's the result as it comes out mixed with the current.
Absolutely. Some people, like if you have a really fall bloom, we're talking about nutrition. If you have a really weak fall bloom or you don't have the pollen coming in, well, they have to have that protein to produce the brood to have young winter bees to be in better shape for winter. So yeah, it's not just a snapshot of what you're looking at that's coming in now. How your bees look now is a lot of a consequence of what happened in September, October, August, even. So that's why I love it because there's so many variables. I mean, that's probably why I've been in transportation because there's just anything could go wrong. Tires blow, you know what I mean? Brake sees trailers out of service from DOT, like just all kinds of stuff getting thrown your way. Well, beekeeping is the exact same way. And it's just being able to look at these variables, nutrition, pollen coming in, and then kind of piece it all together somewhat mechanically and then kind of figure out what's going on.
And if one cog is off, it really will throw everything off till it gets back in sync again.
Domino effect. Yep.
So gosh, since you gave me the segue, I'm going to jump over to it. UVA. I love this.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm sure that this is not something that the world has heard of outside of your genre, because really it's not the beginner beekeeper world, but it's truly fascinating. Tell our viewers about UBO.
UBO stands for unhealthy brood odor. So yeah, I want to look at this too from kind of a segue or a historical perspective. Like the USDA bred VSH bees, and they figured this out in the late 90s. So through the early 2000s, they knew how to measure it. Well, nobody like published this information, so that's why I was just a VSH hoarder. I would just get anything I could that people said had measurable levels of VSH. Well, until I was a member of John Harbaugh's breeding co-op, nobody knew how to measure it. Well, John shared that information with us. Now it's on his website, so anybody can go look at it. If you want to go Google Harbaugh Bee Company and Google VSH, measure VSH, all the protocols out there. So if you want to do it yourself, if you want to narrow it out in your bee yard, you can do that. So that was a game changer. We could actually measure it now. Well, Kara Wagner, this has been 12 years of research coming, found out that she synthesized these compounds of basically if you have brood that's sick or brood that has varroa parasitizing it, so they're in your brood and they're feeding on your pupa, they're stressed, they're
Right.
unhealthy. And so they release this chemical compound that's just like, I'm sick, something's wrong.
Mhm.
And these bees that are hyper hygienic, basically, and there's some overlap with VSH. It's like somewhere between what we know VSH is, and like a hyper hygienic mechanism. That's what UBO measures. So it's like, with a freeze killed brood, or people would use liquid nitrogen. If you've heard of Minnesota hygienics and all the hygienics previously, very cool, but it's a different test. That's a 24-hour test, and they kill the brood. So dead brood and brood that just doesn't feel quite right, or something's parasitizing me, that's completely different compounds. And instead of 24 hours with a freeze killed brood, 2 hours. So it's a much more stringent test. There's a lot of people that are still uncertain about it. And I think some of that uncertainty is because they've tried it and their bees didn't test super high and they were disappointed. So they question the test, which I mean, some level of skepticism is healthy because it's the first version that's out.
Mhm.
Obviously we'll learn more probably and it'll evolve. But I'm not surprised when they don't have high levels of it because they haven't been selecting for host resistance.
Yeah.
Hard. I mean, I'm obsessed over this. Like that's my wife told me that yesterday. She's like, you go beyond. It's annoying to her, so it's not a positive thing always. You go beyond just picking apart all the details and like you just are constantly obsessed with it. And she's right. And so before we tested UBO, I told Kara, I think there's going to be a big overlap in my population. And she's like, okay. And I said, because I've noticed that all the VSH stock that I've used throughout the years, if I saw deform wing virus in my colonies, I would just requeen it.
Right.
That's without a treatment even. So I didn't clean it up. And I would come back and you probably should treat them and requeen it. I'm just saying, I'm a bee nerd and I was studying this.
Sure.
So
Of
this,
course.
so I would requeen them 6, 8 weeks later. I would look back in there as long as I didn't crash, as long as the queen made it and they're still okay. Zero bees with deformed wing virus over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I had Randy Oliver take data too out of my untreated apiaries, and we had ridiculously low levels of deformed wing virus. So Kara, some of her work was saying this is more Varroa specific than freeze killed brood because freeze killed brood doesn't always select exactly for mite resistance, but
Right.
they keep cleaner brood.
Mhm.
Anyway, well, in her studies, she was saying they keep crazy low viral levels. Oh my gosh. I'm like, there's overlap because if VSH is keeping crazy low viral levels, we changed the name to VSH from SMR because it's a hygienic mechanism.
Right.
This is a specific hygiene test, and the field data and the is like overlapping from the way I look at it anyway, because I've had VSHBs for 13 years.
Right.
And so she came out and, oh my gosh, there's a giant overlap. But it was weird because that's not like the European VSHBs, there wasn't a big overlap. And so this just shows you how complex these traits are and that they've been measuring SMR or like a VSH the same way I have in Europe, but they're different. Like what came out the end is different. I guess my bees were freaks, but
Good freaks, though.
good freaks, exactly, in a good way. Kara said that she had tested bees in 7 different countries, at least at that time, and that nothing came remotely close to having as high of a population that tested high than ours. And she's tested a lot of bees. So
You had to have been over the top ecstatic about that.
I was, but at first I was scared, believe it or not, because like I take her these frames and I'm like, and she's like, has this concerned look on her face. I'm like, I thought that was good. You know what I mean? Like they're destroying these samples, like that little circle, like
Right.
so gone. They weren't just uncapped. So basically with a okay, let's go back to UBO. For UBO, you put a little plastic PVC circle on your brood, kind of like you would freeze killed brood, and you just spray, let it dry, let it dry, let it dry. And then you put it back in your colony. Well, you pull it out 2 hours later, and a perfect score, 100%, 98 to 100% of all these pupa, they uncapped it to look in there and see what's going on because they smell that pheromone and they think something's up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got in a lot of ours, and instead of uncapping, there was no pupa left in the sample. And so I think she's like, oh God, something's wrong with the test.
Oh, she thought it was on her end.
She thought it was on her end. So like I was like, what? I thought we were killing it here, you know, and she's looking all concerned. And one that was just no response. They didn't even try to uncap it, which is normal. That's what most of your bees are going to do,
Sure,
on
of course.
selected for this. And she's like, thank God. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is terrible. She's like, I thought something was wrong. Like, not only is, you know, and this was in the beginning stages of thing. Afterwards, we found several that didn't respond, you know, and she was just saying that overall, like she's good with it now, but was glad we saw some that didn't respond because she thought something was up with the test. But it was just my bees. They were just, she said the scores were unprecedented. She hadn't seen anything that responded like that. So anyway.
Well, it enables, just for anyone that's got any gray areas in that, and I'm sure there's a million questions people run through their head, is that you want this so that you can hone in on the very best varroa sensitive, hygienic queens bees that you can offer your customers.
Absolutely. Yep. Because they take care of a lot of problems themselves. Like if you get bees that are not hygienic, which most, I'm telling you, I think Kara said 2 to 4% of bees will test pretty high out of the population. That's nothing. So most of your colonies are making all these drones have no disease resistance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why we're always freaked out over, oh my gosh, is Amatraz starting to lose its effectiveness? Oh my gosh, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I do very well.
I look at this from I'm a trained entomologist. So I like IPM has been battered into my brain for years whenever I was studying for my master's degree. And so that's what I love so much about, I was saying I was a beekeeper and now I have this IPM approach and it's like 3D now and where it was one dimensional. But anyhow, back to the host resistance. Whenever you're selecting for this stuff and you get the frequencies really high in your population, they're taking care of a lot of the mites and diseases themselves. Now you still want to use IPM. IPM is measuring what kind of a problem you have. If you have 100% VSHBs, they still get mites from robbing or wherever that they find the little turds and bring them home. So if your levels, if you're right next, if you're commercial, which Blake runs a lot of commercial bees, you're all over the place. You might be a half a mile from somebody that's getting overrun with mites and you're not aware of it, and they bring them home. So you still want to use IPM, but this is like a foundation of protection that your bees can handle themselves, and then you can come in and treat as needed. It's not like you're, oh my gosh, I missed a treatment, everyone's going to die. It's not the case because they're working on it themselves. You just want to come in when they're getting overrun with some air support.
Yeah, air support. I love that. It's
Exactly.
really where we all want to be because I mean, I don't think, I mean, of course, we've got this gamut of I'll do anything to treat for varroa. I mean, throw nukes at it if I have to, nuclear, whatever.
Exactly.
To treatment free that is not kumbaya. That's really a meticulous method of requeening when you get right down to it.
Right.
But we want all of us, no matter where you are on that gamut, you want to not have to throw nuclear at them.
Yeah, exactly.
We want your grandchildren that are going to be keeping bees to
Yep.
be able to not, they're not going to be going, okay, we're now resistant on this again. And we're working on these 10 other products. You know, when I spoke with Jamie Ellis last month, or well,
Cool.
it's just, we've got all these things in the works, but we have to.
Yep, totally.
So if we're staying on top of it in the natural realm with integrated pest management, the IPM you're referring to, then we really are making ground with that.
Absolutely. And I look at it like a house or a pyramid. A lot of times, if you look at IPM online, they'll have a pyramid. And I've actually got a
Yeah.
presentation I'm writing to compare all of them. And then, like, to me, as an entomologist, the very bottom of that pyramid, the foundation that everything else is based upon should be host resistance, measurable host resistance. Because if you don't have that, you've got to go nuclear all the time. And
Yeah.
that's not sustainable because that's how mites get resistant because we overuse it or overexpose them to it. So it's like this catch to we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But
So
if
we're
we,
mechanical on the bottom now
yes,
and cultural second. So really we need to get that.
yep.
Will we marry those two or will we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just a reprioritization. Once we know that we can breed for it effectively and we've got it in our commercial population, that's the foundation. They're handling this themselves. We're not spending time or money or resources to worry so much about it. But we are because we're going to be sampling. That's IPM. That's making threshold based decisions. Are they getting overrun? No, they're handling it themselves. Okay, good luck to them. I'm not going to spend all this money on labor and treatments to try to fix a problem they don't have. And then, like you said, if this, I call that host resistance is the holy grail of IPM. Like
Right.
it's the foundation. If you got that right, this other stuff gets so easier. You know what I mean? It's like it's just putting it in an order. It's not getting rid of anything on the pyramid, like you mentioned, cultural, mechanical treatments. Like it's just minimizing it. Like IPM as a whole is just treat when you need, not just treat
It
constantly.
is. It's treat when you need. I had this conversation with some
Yeah.
friends the other night, talking about what to lead into, and I'm like, no, wait, do you need?
Yeah.
Wait, do you need? And really what I'm hearing out of you is something that to me is so exciting and I know that the bee supply, we're really on that cusp because we're able to guarantee our bees for 30 days now. And what
That's
that's
awesome.
saying is what we're giving you as the purchaser, the client, is we're there.
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
beyond that 30 days, it's really on you.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's unsurpassed. I mean, nobody offers that I've ever.
No, we are kind of there with that, aren't we?
That's huge. And I would say that's absolutely value added. So kudos to you for that.
Well, and it's because we're able to use tools like what you're talking about, and we're able to say, okay, these bees are performing. They're doing what they're bred to do,
Yes.
and we are doing the hard work on the back end, and we're providing the smaller scale beekeeper with a super solid product, and that's what you're trying to do as well.
Bottom line, that's it. High quality queens with measurable host resistance. And the thing is, too, is I'm working with commercial friends because I don't want it to just be Cory's bees in his backyard in Southeast Missouri. I'm moving to pallets and to where I could be mobile or migratory if I need to this year, but I'm not there. You know what I mean? And so I want my bees to not just have levels of measurable host resistance. They need to be profitable and productive, or who cares? You
Yeah,
know,
right.
it's not worth anything. And so, I'm working with some friends that are commercial beekeepers to where they're running my stock on a larger scale. So they're migratory, going out to almonds and coming back. And then I'm testing them instead of just a smaller sample size. We're selecting out of a lot more colonies now, and they have that commercial pressure. And I tell the guys, run the heck out of them. Tell me who is hammering whenever
Mhm.
they come back, and they're just, what those colonies, you open them up and you can't even hardly see a frame in there in the springtime because they're ready for war. I go, mark those. I'm testing those. All the little dinkers, I'm not wasting my time testing those. So that way, what we have coming out the other end is something that's productive. You can make splits out of it. You can make honey off of it, and it has host resistance too. Like we're looking for the total package here, and of
And
course,
so that's a good move on your part, is so you're really, because you can have a controlled environment and your results are pretty much going to be good.
exactly, it's
You've
easier.
got to be able to get out there.
Yep, totally. And so it's the thing is too is like I watched the USDA. They've done so many amazing things. Like their scientists identified SMR and VSH. then they started working with, I mean, this isn't a brand new idea. They started working with the pollinator line, hygienics, back when Tom Glenn, I used to get those and Harbo was selecting them. So they're smart. You
Yeah.
know, they're bridging that gap with commercial. And so I'm like, why can't I do that? I've got buddies that are commercial that are really interested in what I'm doing, you know, and are willing to buy breeders or do whatever. So I'm just kind of following in their footsteps, and just I want to take it to the next level, and I want to go really large. There's some I heard Jeff Harris say the other day at a queen breeding function in Stoneville, Mississippi. He said the USDA did a really good job of finding and breeding a bee that's actually mite resistant. Where they failed was really getting it out into the market. And I don't know that he completely failed, because obviously Tom Glenn was making breeders and people were producing queens off of it, but that was something he felt like they could have done a better job out of. And so I'm talking with some larger scale queen producers now, to where, you know, we have this measurable stock. We're pushing it commercially and testing. And so I'm talking with several of them, and I think it'll happen within the next, this year for sure, by next spring, to where they're using my breeder queens and producing mass numbers of open mated queens. I just produce virgins. That's really annoying for a lot of beekeepers, but I'm not set up to run thousands of mating mix. Or maybe I'll get there, but I don't know.
Well, your drone yards, controlling your drone yards are
Totally, yep,
so difficult.
absolutely. And so I'm going to let them do what they do best and raise high quality, mass amounts of open mated queens. I'll do what I do best: scientific data collection, instrumental insemination, making breeder queens. And then together, I think we can be a powerhouse of actually getting this stuff out into the market too. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Oh, it's going to go great. I think that the caveat to that is education for the
Totally.
end user.
Yeah.
The end user being the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because, pardon me, is we've got to know what to do beyond that solid test. You know, being able to go in and do monthly varroa testing.
Yep.
Gosh, you know, and when we started beekeeping, I can't speak for you, but we were 4 times a year, and that was a bunch. Some people were 1 or 2.
Yep.
Testing 1 or 2 times a year. And really, what were they looking at? I mean, that's like looking in a fishbowl of sharks trying to find the goldfish.
Right.
Right? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
We're stay ahead of those varroa mites, by gosh, by
Yes.
God.
Yes. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
educating, I think that's the key, is educating us.
And beekeeping still applies, you know what I mean? Just because they're BSH,
Yeah.
they can still starve to death. They can still get into some kind of chemical and get killed. They can still catch other problems or diseases. You know what I mean? It's not like they're unkillable or immortal. It's just you have a statistical advantage because they're working towards the problem, not just you.
Right.
So, you know, like overall, you're going to have lower, you know, like one of the guys that's bought my breeders for years, Paul Landsberg out of Missouri, he said overall he's migratory. If I'm quoting him correctly, he put this on Commercial Beekeepers. He's run my breeders for years. He has less dead loss. He has more bees that make an 8 frame average go to almonds. He makes more honey. Is that because the bees make more honey or because they're less dead? I don't know. One of the two.
Less dead.
More money, and that's because of the selection and investing in the stock. It's not like he doesn't ever have dead hives. That's unrealistic in 2024. It's just that he has more that are alive. You still have to be a beekeeper. You still have to pay attention to if they're getting overrun by mites. Are they starving to death? The same stuff that we have to pay attention to. We have to pay attention to. It's just they're sturdier and they're handling some of this on their own. You know, instead of it just being on our shoulders as beekeepers.
Just so cool. Bees are so cool. They're just so cool.
I love them.
I do too. I do too.
I'm
totally addicted. So, gosh, I skipped over a lot of stuff. I want to, and I saw this on, did I see it on 2? I saw it on one video that you just did in November, and you talked about the Stevens method of virgin queen introduction.
Yes.
I was so excited when I saw it, I guess it was a week or so ago, that I ran into my husband and I was like, what are we doing? What have we been doing all this time? Duh. Go ahead.
Okay, well,
There's so many duh moments in your methodology.
well, I had to learn the hard way, so I had this thing.
Wow. Well, thanks for pointing it out to those of us.
Hey, I'm happy to share. I'm an open book.
Thanks.
I try to share everything. I don't hide any secrets or anything.
Okay, so Stevens method.
The Stevens method, I learned that this was born of pain and suffering. So, as I said before, I only sell virgin queens. That's really annoying to a lot of beekeepers because a lot of beekeepers don't know how to handle or introduce virgin queens. And so, how I learned this, I learned from Sue Kobe in 2014 to inseminate queen bees. Well, you inseminate virgin queens at 10 days of age. This is just protocol. That's the best. You can do it a little earlier, a little later, whatever, but 10's ideal. So what I'm doing is introducing old crusty virgin. They're not really old crusty. They're still functional, but old virgins, like the worst case scenario for beekeepers to try to get these introduced. And Sue's like, well, put them in the nuke, and let them get accustomed to her. Then when you inseminate her, if they can run around, their sperm migration's better. I'm like, okay. So I leave them in the nuke. They take care of her the whole time. I inseminate her. I turn her loose in there, manual. Okay. I come back. They murdered them all. I'm like, what the heck? I've invested all this time and everything into this, and they just unceremoniously kill them. And so whenever I was doing a crime scene investigation, the old CSI, every time they killed these queens, they made emergency cells. This is why they reject virgins all the time, because virgins aren't like open-mated queens. They don't have that pheromone profile that suppresses the worker's ovaries and suppresses the bee's urge to make queen cells. Now, sometimes they still will if you dequeen and put an open-mated queen in. Anyway, so I had a light bulb moment. I'm like, I just did it mechanically. I looked at, okay, they're an egg for 3 days. Day 4, that's the perfect age to raise queens, really young larvae. Day 5, if they think they're dying, they're going to do anything they can to raise an emergency queen. Day 5, they'll still do it. And it's not going to be a high quality queen, by the way. It's 48-hour-old larvae.
Right.
Day 6, they're probably not going to try, but since I'm not a betting man, I'm going to wait till day 7 till there is nothing you have that you will even attempt to raise a queen cell out of. And then I cut those cells, and they'll feed that virgin the entire time in that candy cage if it's capped. But if you let her out with those queen cells, I thought she would just kill the queen cells. No, the workers kill the virgin.
Well, she's the problem. She's an intruder of theirs.
Exactly. And so I was like, we can play this game. I'll just wait till they can't make any more, kill all of them, and then she'll be the only option. My take went through the roof. I'm like,
I bet you were.
I figured it out. And whenever I would explain this to Sue or Bob Benny or some of these rock star beekeepers, like I would lose them whenever I would say, I let them sit 7 to 9 days without a queen. And then I put the virgin in. They're like, what, like that. And I've never read it in literature. I'm telling it to people who know bees, and it seems like a foreign concept. That's why I called it the Stevens method, because
you should have, yes.
I figured it out on my own. But then I had another duh moment. I thought I beat them mechanically. I figured out that I was mirroring Mother Nature and that I didn't win. I was just playing her game. And if you think about this, what does an old queen do whenever the colony is about to swarm or stop doing?
She gets skinny and
she gets skinny. She quits laying eggs. Her ovaries shrink up so she can fly good. She stops laying.
The other demo.
They'll hold those virgins in there until they're ready to go. And most of the time, whenever a virgin is released and introduced in nature, there's no eggs and there's no young larvae. We just mirrored Mother Nature. And so then, that was a series of duh moments, but I really figured it out in 2015. But anyway, that's whenever I was like, I don't want to sell open mated queens because I have a really shorter season up here and I just couldn't make enough money. It was easier for me to work less and just sell the nuke instead of trying to make 3 rounds of queens, And so I started selling virgins, and you're going to get massive pushback from the beekeeping industry because it's a foreign concept.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a virgin. They'll kill them or throw them in the trash or chuck them out. And anyway, I started saying, well, here's the only way I offer it. If you want my genetics, my unique genetics, this is what you need to do, you know. And I had a lot of people were like, no. And some people were like, okay, I'll try it. And then they would email me back, holy crap, that worked.
Yeah.
It worked really well, you know. And this is an average, it's open mating. So stuff happens. They get lost, birds
Sure.
pick them, you know, stuff can happen, but your odds are acceptable. You know, it's at a level to where it works really well. And so that's what got me out of my day job. And I know some commercial beekeepers want to put a bag over my head until I quit breathing whenever
Ow.
I sell virgin clay. I just,
Well, it's unheard of. It
yeah,
isn't normal.
I'm just
But,
being dramatic here.
uniqueness, being unique.
Yeah, I don't mind bending rules if it makes sense, you know, or challenging industry standards because that's how we grow and
It
learn
is.
things, you know. And it's more profitable for me. So instead of having all the back labor of making up nukes, waiting 3 weeks or whatever you
Mhm.
wait, I would always wait 3 weeks. Some don't wait that long, but still weeks. And then you have the labor of making up the nukes and everything. You know, I shaved that part of it out to where I felt like the margin was actually enough that I could scale it and get out of my day job. Like whenever I tell people I wanted to sell breeder queens, it's not worth it, unfortunately, for what they go for. The amount of back labor and selection and maintenance of the bees to be able to produce them, it's just not profitable. But virgin queens are what got me out of my day job. That's
Well,
what
if
fired
you're
it.
passing with the education of how to do it with it,
Sure.
I can see this being very, very popular
Yeah.
and
And the thing is
even
too is
further
like
down the trail.
right. And open mated queens, I'm not knocking them. That's a premium product.
Mhm.
Premium. They're easier to introduce. They're already laying. They're proven. You don't have the
Mhm.
risk of mating involved in it. But I just felt like the industry, the prices of nukes and packages walked off and left open mated queens. Like, you know, I think and I know there's always supply and demand, and, you know, maybe large producers don't want to pay what I think they're actually worth. You know, there's all these other complicated things involved in it. But I think if we have superior stock, we have a selection program in place that's world class, and I partner with these people that are producing open mated queens, I think we can make it mutually beneficial to where it's worth my time, and I can even potentially hire techs. You know, if it's scalable, I could hire techs and have teams testing and doing cool stuff, share it openly. So the beekeeping industry wins, and we've got open mated queens.
Yeah. I don't
And
see any reason why you're not gonna do that. I mean,
it's,
realistically, you're just at the beginning stages of it.
yep.
So
I've got
March 1st, so what's gonna happen March 1st?
March 1st. I'm gonna turn in my laptop to Nestle Purina and my keys and I say keys. I don't even go to the office, but I still have keys. So
Right.
I'll turn all that in. I'm gonna have a couple days off. No, I'm not.
I was gonna say, it's time to
No, I'm
start
not. That's a
working.
lie. My wife says I hate relaxation anyway, so I'm gonna start dipping a bunch of new cypress woodenware that I've got, and then a couple days after that, I'm gonna go with one of my buddies that runs commercial down to Mississippi, and I'm gonna
Cool.
help him out. Yep, he runs some of my queens too, and they're splitting their minis out to start raising queens, you know. So I'm gonna give him a hand and help out down there, and I know I'll learn something
Oh, yeah.
because they're world class. They're good guys. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to get after it. I'm going to set the world on fire. I'm probably going to do 200 to 300 breeders this year. I'm going to test more than I've ever tested. I'm testing in multiple operations that are already running my stock. And so,
You don't start until April, right?
right. Yeah, I can't. The
So that
bees
gives you
aren't
a
ready.
month.
And that's one reason I want to get on pallets too, because I've had offers of yards to where I could go down and get an early start, you know, I'd be a month ahead of where I'm at.
Mhm.
You know, so we'll see. But if these guys that I'm working with are doing that and we're partnering and I'm selecting their stock and they're selling my queens, you know, I may not need to go down there. Really.
It's easier to move these on pallets anyway.
Yeah. I mean I'm not down there just to test or make
Yeah.
breeders for them. You know what I mean? My
Yeah.
people that I'm working with, queen producers. So we'll see. I don't know. I've got just it's not in a dream state. It's not just totally like I've got people that have verbally agreed to it, I don't have contracts signed and money being changed hands yet, but it's gonna happen. I mean, it's
Well,
already.
sometimes that's cart before horse. You
Yeah.
really just have to work it as it goes and it will.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that things happen the way they're supposed to for us to get to that
Absolutely.
ultimate goal. So,
Absolutely.
super interesting.
Yeah.
Golly, I want to take this another hour, but I can't do that to you or our listeners, or I bet I need to get back to my day job too.
We can always do a volume 2, Chari.
Yeah.
You know
Oh,
where to find me.
yeah. 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 All right. On that note, Cory, I thank you so much for visiting with me. I mean, my screen went to sleep, but we've been talking and I was enthralled so long. This is just super interesting, and I'm going to link your website to
Cool. Yeah.
this video, and also UBO, because I think everybody's going to want to know about that. And
Totally.
if you would, please keep me in the loop with how things are going. And I'd love
Absolutely.
to come back and visit at the maybe I was going to say next year, but I think I'm going to say end of season. I really think I want to go see you again, and let's see how it went first year.
Absolutely. Let's do that, seriously, because I'll be interested myself to see how things shook out, because you know how beekeeping is. Some of it's going to go better than it planned, and some of it's going to not go as well as I thought. And it's okay. We'll adjust, make adjustments, and keep going. That's just the only way to do it.
And we need to make a pact that we're not going to call it our duh moment. We're going to call it our aha moment.
Yeah, that's why I went.
It's our aha. It's not that we're stupid.
It's a revelation.
Revelation.
Yeah.
Thankful for those revelations, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Cory.
Thank you.
We're going to talk, and
Yes.
everybody check him out. You're going to be totally stoked about it, like I am.
Tell Blake I said hi.
I will.
All right.
Yeah.
See you, Chari.